They thought protection was for the weak, until your presence started shifting rooms without a word. Now every move around you feels calculated. Every silence feels watched. You're no longer treated like everybody else because energy like yours changes the atmosphere. When people recognize value, power, and influence in someone, they stop playing reckless games. That's what elite status is: not fame, not money, but becoming untouchable through mindset, discipline, and silent dominance. Your safety became priority because your existence carries weight now. The moment you mastered yourself, the world changed its behavior around you. And trust me, they noticed long before you did. Most people think power is loud. They imagine dominance as shouting, showing off, proving something every second to everyone around them. But the highest level of power was never designed to beg for attention. Real influence walks into a room without introduction and still changes the energy inside it. That is why silent power scares people more than noise ever will. Noise can be predicted. Noise exposes insecurity. But silence forces people to think. It makes them wonder what you know, what you're planning, and how far you're willing to go without speaking a single word. The moment you stop explaining yourself to everybody, your entire presence changes. People become uncomfortable because they can no longer read you easily. They can't control you through opinions anymore because you stopped reacting to every little thing. Most people spend their lives trying to be seen, trying to be accepted, trying to fit into circles that never respected them in the first place. But elite status begins the second you realize your value doesn't decrease because someone failed to understand it. That mindset alone separates leaders from followers. Silent power is built through discipline nobody sees. It's created in lonely moments when nobody is clapping for you, while others waste energy. Talking about dreams, making excuses, and chasing validation, you're building yourself quietly. You're sharpening your mind while people underestimate you. You're controlling emotions while others lose control publicly. That level of self-mastery creates an aura that cannot be faked. People feel it before you even speak. Have you noticed how the most dangerous person in the room usually says the least? That's because confidence doesn't need constant advertisement. Insecure people announce their strength every chance they get because they fear being ignored. But someone with silent power understands something deeper. Real status is revealed naturally. It doesn't need performance. It doesn't need permission. And it definitely doesn't need approval from crowds who switch opinions every week. The world respects restraint more than chaos. Anyone can react emotionally. Anyone can scream when angry or collapse under pressure. But controlling yourself while everything around you is unstable, that's rare. That's elite. The ability to remain calm when others panic makes people look at you differently. They start realizing you operate on another level mentally. Your silence begins to feel heavier than their words. What truly terrifies people is unpredictability mixed with control. When someone cannot manipulate your emotions anymore, they lose power over you. They expect reactions, arguments, breakdowns, desperate explanations. But instead, you stay composed. You move carefully. Speak only when necessary. That kind of behavior forces people to question themselves. They begin watching you more closely because your calmness feels untouchable. Elite status also comes from understanding that energy is valuable. You stop wasting it on pointless battles, fake friendships, and unnecessary drama. You become selective with attention because you realize attention itself is power. Not everybody deserves access to your mind, your emotions, or your plans. The more disciplined you become with your energy, the stronger your presence becomes naturally. And eventually something strange happens. The same people who overlooked you begin studying you. The same people who doubted you start speaking carefully around you. Not because you threatened them, not because you begged for respect, but because silent power creates psychological pressure on everyone around it. People can sense when somebody has outgrown insecurity. That's why elite status can never be purchased or copied. Clothes cannot create it. Money alone cannot sustain it. Social media attention cannot imitate it for long. Silent power is earned through pain, patience, self-control, and mental discipline. It is built when you choose growth over ego repeatedly. It is built when you stop chasing approval and start mastering yourself completely. And once that transformation happens, your presence alone becomes enough to make people think twice before crossing you. There comes a moment in life when your energy becomes stronger than your words. You walk into a room and people immediately adjust themselves without fully understanding why. Conversations shift. Fake smiles become nervous. Loud people suddenly become careful with their tone. That's not coincidence. That's presence. And presence is something most people underestimate until they encounter someone who truly has it. The average person believes influence only comes from status, money, or popularity. But some individuals carry a different kind of weight. Their mindset, discipline, pain, and self-control create an invisible pressure that others can feel instantly. You don't need to announce power when your aura already speaks before you do. That's why certain people command respect naturally while others spend their entire lives begging for attention. Your presence changes people because humans react to energy more than words. They study confidence unconsciously. They observe emotional control. They notice who folds under pressure and who remains calm when tension rises. The moment people realize you cannot be manipulated easily, their behavior changes automatically. Suddenly they think before speaking around you. Suddenly the jokes become softer. Suddenly the disrespect disappears. Not because you demanded it, but because your energy established boundaries without needing permission. There's something intimidating about a person who no longer seeks validation. Most people are controlled by the fear of rejection. They adjust personalities just to fit in. They stay quiet when disrespected because they fear losing approval. But when someone becomes comfortable standing alone, they become difficult to control. That independence creates psychological pressure on everyone nearby. People sense when somebody no longer depends on external acceptance to feel powerful. Your presence also changes behavior because calmness is rare in a chaotic world. Everyone reacts emotionally now. People explode over opinions, argue over small things, and expose their emotions constantly. But when you stay composed while others lose control, it creates contrast. Your silence becomes louder than their noise. Your patience becomes more noticeable than their reactions. And slowly, people begin adjusting themselves around your stability because deep down, they recognize strength when they see it. The powerful thing about presence is that it cannot be copied for long. Someone can imitate confidence temporarily. They can practice body, language, fake arrogance, or act dominant online. But real presence comes from internal battles survived quietly. It comes from pain that taught discipline. It comes from betrayal that taught awareness. It comes from suffering that forced mental growth. That's why authentic presence feels heavy, because it was built through experience, not performance. People also behave differently around you when they sense self-respect. Self-respect changes everything. The way you speak changes. The way you react changes. The things you tolerate become limited. And once people realize you are willing to walk away from disrespect instead of chasing approval, they start treating you carefully. Humans naturally test boundaries, but they also recognize strength quickly. The moment they understand you value yourself deeply, they begin valuing you differently too. What makes strong presence dangerous is unpredictability mixed with control. Loud people are easy to understand. Emotional people reveal themselves constantly. But disciplined individuals move carefully. They don't expose every thought, every plan, or every emotion. That mystery forces people to observe more closely. They become cautious because they cannot fully predict your next move. And unpredictability creates respect faster than aggression ever will. Eventually, your presence becomes a filter. Weak intentions reveal themselves quickly around you. Fake people become uncomfortable because authenticity exposes performance naturally. Manipulative people lose confidence because they realize emotional tricks no longer work on you. Even opportunities begin changing because the world responds differently to people who carry themselves with certainty and control. And the truth is, you may not even notice your own transformation at first. While you were focused on surviving, improving, and mastering yourself, your entire energy changed quietly. The fear disappeared from your eyes. The desperation disappeared from your actions. The need for approval disappeared from your decisions. And once that happened, people started reacting to you differently without explanation. Because presence is not created by trying to look powerful. Presence is what happens when you become powerful within yourself first. Most people spend their lives trying to prove their worth to people who already decided to underestimate them. They chase acceptance, over-explain themselves, and exhaust their energy hoping others will finally recognize their value. But true value does not beg to be noticed. True value becomes impossible to ignore over time. And when that happens, something changes in the way the world responds to you. Protection begins appearing naturally because people become aware of what would be lost if you disappeared. At first, nobody sees your growth clearly. They only remember the version of you they felt comfortable around, the version they could overlook, disrespect, or underestimate without consequences. But while they were busy judging appearances, you were building something deeper. You were developing discipline, emotional control, intelligence, resilience, and awareness. Quietly, your standards changed. Quietly, your mindset evolved. And eventually, your value started becoming visible even to those who never believed in you. The powerful thing about undeniable value is that it forces people to adjust their behavior. Humans protect what they consider rare. They protect things that are difficult to replace. That applies to opportunities, relationships, leadership, and even presence. Once people realize your mindset, energy, or abilities cannot be easily duplicated, they stop treating you casually. They become careful with access to you. They begin respecting your boundaries because losing you suddenly feels expensive. Most people think protection only comes from power, money, or connections. But there's another level of protection that comes from becoming valuable enough. Others instinctively recognize your importance. The moment your presence improves environments, solves problems, inspires people, or changes outcomes, people begin protecting your space naturally. Not because you demanded it, but because your existence now carries weight. That's why self-development is one of the strongest forms of protection. Every skill you sharpen, every emotion you master, every hardship you survive increases your internal value. Weakness attracts exploitation, but disciplined growth attracts respect. The more you master yourself, the less people feel comfortable testing you recklessly. Your energy alone begins communicating that you are not someone to take lightly anymore. And here's the truth most people ignore. The world does not immediately reward hidden value. There will be seasons where nobody notices your effort. Nobody applauds your discipline. Nobody understands your vision. During those moments, insecure people often quit because they depend on the validation to stay motivated. But elite individuals continue evolving even without recognition because they understand something important. Undeniable value takes time to reveal itself fully. Think about diamonds buried underground. For a long time, nobody sees their worth. People walk over them daily without realizing what exists beneath the surface. But once discovered, everything changes. Suddenly they are protected, secured, and treated carefully because their value became undeniable. The same thing happens with people. Once your mindset, skills, and presence become impossible to overlook, the treatment around you changes automatically. People also protect those who remain calm under pressure. In difficult situations, emotional individuals create chaos, but valuable individuals create stability. That difference matters. When people recognize you as someone who can think clearly during storms, solve problems without panic, and maintain composure while others collapse emotionally, your importance rises naturally. Stability itself becomes rare in a world full of emotional reactions. Your value also becomes undeniable when your actions consistently match your words. Consistency builds trust, and trust creates influence. Most people talk endlessly but lack discipline when pressure arrives. But when someone repeatedly demonstrates reliability, strength, and focus over time, others begin depending on that energy. And humans instinctively protect what they depend on. Another reason protection appears around valuable people because powerful individuals recognize potential quickly. Leaders, observers, and intelligent people can sense when somebody possesses rare qualities. They notice the focus in your eyes, the control in your emotions, and the discipline in your actions. While average people judge surfaces, experienced people study character. And once they identify real value, they often move differently around you because they understand your future potential before others do. Eventually, your growth creates an invisible shield around your life. Not because danger disappears, but because your value changes how people approach you entirely. The disrespect decreases. The fake behavior becomes obvious. The careless treatment fades. And all of it happens because you stopped chasing approval and started building undeniable worth within yourself first. Most people wait for motivation before they change their lives. They wait to feel ready. They wait for the perfect timing, perfect energy, or perfect circumstances. And because of that, they remain trapped in the same cycle for years. But discipline operates differently. Discipline moves even when emotions disappear. It acts even when comfort says stop. That's why discipline transforms ordinary people into forces that become impossible to ignore. An untouchable person is not someone born special. They are not magically fearless, naturally gifted, or constantly confident. They simply learned how to control themselves when others couldn't. That's the difference. While average people are controlled by moods, distractions, and temporary emotions, disciplined people continue moving forward regardless of what they feel. And over time, that consistency creates power most people cannot compete with. The dangerous thing about discipline is that it compounds silently. One controlled decision may seem small. Waking up early one day means nothing. Staying focused one night changes nothing instantly. Refusing distractions once does not look impressive, but when those actions repeat for months and years, the results become terrifying. Small acts of self-control eventually create a person whose mindset, habits, and presence feel unreachable to people who never mastered themselves. Most people underestimate how rare discipline truly is. Everyone talks about success, power, and greatness, but very few are willing to suffer for it consistently. People love the image of strength but avoid the process that creates it. They want results without sacrifice. They want respect without pressure. They want transformation without discomfort. But discipline demands pain. It demands repetition. It demands the ability to keep moving while nobody is clapping for you. That's why disciplined individuals often appear different from everybody around them. Their energy feels sharper. Their focus feels heavier. Even their silence feels intentional. While others waste years reacting emotionally to every situation, disciplined people train themselves to respond with control. And emotional control alone can separate someone from the majority instantly. Discipline also changes the way people treat you. Humans observe consistency more than words. They notice who folds under pressure and who remains steady during chaos. They notice who constantly makes excuses and who quietly handles responsibilities. Over time, disciplined behavior creates trust, respect, and even intimidation because people realize they are dealing with someone who cannot be easily distracted or manipulated. The truth is, most people fear disciplined individuals because discipline exposes weakness naturally. Someone who wakes up every day with purpose reminds others of their lack of consistency. Someone who controls emotions reminds others of their impulsiveness. Someone who remains focused while everyone else seeks comfort creates pressure without saying anything at all. Excellence has a way of making insecure people uncomfortable. Discipline is also powerful because it creates freedom. Weak habits enslave people. Addiction to comfort, laziness, validation, and distraction keeps millions mentally trapped. But discipline breaks those chains slowly. The more control you gain over your mind, your routines, and your reactions, the harder it becomes for outside forces to control you. That independence creates an energy people can feel immediately. There's something almost untouchable about a person who knows. Longer depends on motivation. Motivation is temporary. It disappears during stress, pain, and setbacks. But discipline survives difficult days. It survives rejection. It survives exhaustion. That's why disciplined people continue evolving while others constantly restart from the beginning. The world also reacts differently to disciplined individuals because reliability is rare. Most people are unpredictable emotionally. They quit when pressure increases. They disappear when challenges appear. But disciplined people become stronger through pressure. Challenges sharpen them instead of breaking them. That resilience changes how others view them completely. And eventually, discipline begins transforming more than habits. It changes identity. You start thinking differently, moving differently, and carrying yourself differently. The fear that once controlled you weakens. The distractions that once owned your attention lose power. The need for approval fades because your focus becomes bigger than outside opinions. At that point, people stop seeing you as ordinary. They begin sensing something heavier behind your presence, a level of control, consistency, and mental toughness they cannot easily understand. Not because you became superhuman, but because you mastered the one thing most people never conquer: yourself. And once a person truly masters themselves, they become extremely difficult for the world to break. Most people confuse attention with power. They think the loudest person in the room is automatically the strongest. They believe dominance means constantly proving yourself, showing off achievements, or demanding recognition from everyone around you. But real power has never worked that way. Real power moves quietly. It doesn't need constant applause because its impact speaks long before words ever do. The most influential people are often the calmest people in the room. They observe more than they react. They listen more than they argue. While others chase visibility desperately, they focus on control. And that control creates a presence that affects everybody around them without needing performance. People feel it immediately, even if they cannot explain it. Noise is easy to create. Anybody can pretend to be important online. Anybody can act aggressive, arrogant, or untouchable for a few moments. But lasting influence is different. Lasting influence changes environments. It changes decisions. It changes the behavior of people nearby. Most of the time it happens quietly. That's what makes it dangerous. Real power understands timing. It does not waste energy reacting emotionally to every situation. Weak people react instantly because emotions control them. Powerful people pause. They calculate. They understand that one controlled move can create more impact than 100 emotional reactions. That patience alone separates leaders from people who constantly lose control under pressure. There's also something psychologically intimidating about quiet confidence. Loud people reveal insecurity without realizing it. Constantly needing attention usually means someone is afraid of being ignored. But someone who remains composed without seeking validation creates mystery. People begin studying them more closely because calmness under pressure feels unnatural in a world addicted to reactions. Think about storms for a second. The strongest storms don't announce themselves every minute before arriving. You feel their impact when they move through everything around them. Real power operates similarly. It doesn't need daily reminders of its existence. Its results become visible naturally. People notice the influence after decisions shift, after rooms become quieter, after behavior changes around certain individuals. That's why disciplined people often make the biggest impact silently. While others are busy talking about plans, disciplined individuals are building quietly. They improve skills privately. They master emotions privately. They evolve mentally without needing everyone to witness the process. Then one day the results become undeniable and people suddenly wonder how everything changed so quickly. The truth is, quiet power forces respect because it feels controlled. Reckless energy can be entertaining, but controlled energy feels dangerous. A person who can remain calm while carrying strength becomes difficult to predict. And unpredictability creates psychological pressure. People become cautious around individuals who do not expose every thought, emotion, or intention publicly. Real power also impacts everyone because energy spreads silently. One disciplined person can influence an entire environment without trying. Their standards raise expectations naturally. Their composure calms chaos. Their focus exposes distractions around them. Even people who dislike them often feel affected by their presence because strong energy changes atmospheres automatically. Another reason quiet power is effective is because it avoids unnecessary battles. Weak people fight for ego constantly. They argue over respect, attention, and opinions because they need validation emotionally. But powerful individuals understand that protecting energy matters more than winning every argument. Silence becomes strategy instead of weakness. Walking away becomes strength instead of fear. And strangely enough, the less someone seeks approval, the more influence they often gain. Desperation pushes people away, but self-control attracts attention naturally. When people realize you are not chasing validation, they begin paying closer attention because independence is rare. Most humans are emotionally dependent on acceptance from others. Someone who operates confidently without needing constant reassurance feels different immediately. Over time, quiet power creates massive impact because consistency always defeats performance eventually. Temporary attention fades. Fake confidence fades. Loud personalities lose momentum. But disciplined influence grows stronger year after year because it is built on substance instead of image. Eventually, people begin changing how they speak around you, how they approach you, and how they treat you entirely. Not because you demanded fear or respect, but because your calmness, discipline, and control created an impact too strong to ignore. That is the nature of real power. It rarely announces itself loudly, but somehow everyone around it feels its presence anyway. For a long time, you probably tried to make everyone understand you. You explained your intentions, adjusted your personality, stayed quiet to avoid conflict, and tolerated disrespect just to keep peace around you. Like most people, you believed acceptance would bring connection, respect, and value. But the more approval you chased, the more invisible you became. Because people rarely respect someone who constantly needs validation from them. The moment everything started, changing was the moment you stopped needing permission to be yourself. That shift was powerful. You stopped shrinking your thoughts to make insecure people comfortable. You stopped over-explaining every decision. You stopped begging people to see your worth. And strangely, once you no longer chased approval, people began looking at you differently. Humans naturally value certainty. When someone constantly seeks validation, it signals doubt. It tells the world they are unsure of themselves. But when someone becomes comfortable standing on their own beliefs without needing constant reassurance, their energy changes completely. Confidence begins replacing desperation. Calmness replaces anxiety. And people can feel that transformation immediately. Most people are addicted to approval without realizing it. They measure their worth through opinions, attention, likes, compliments, and acceptance from others. That emotional dependence controls their decisions every day. It controls how they dress, speak, act, and even dream. They become prisoners of perception, and because they fear rejection so deeply, they tolerate situations that slowly destroy their self-respect. But self-respect grows the second you realize not everybody deserves access to your energy. Some people only respected the version of you that stayed easy to control. They liked you when you constantly explained yourself. They liked you when you accepted unfair treatment quietly. They liked you when your fear of losing approval made you predictable. But the moment you stopped seeking validation, the power dynamic changed completely. There is something intimidating about a person who no longer fears disapproval. When someone becomes emotionally independent, manipulation stops working the same way. Guilt loses power, opinions lose power, pressure loses power, and suddenly people realize they cannot control you through acceptance anymore. That realization alone changes how they behave around you. The truth is, people often test boundaries unconsciously. They observe how much disrespect you tolerate. They study how quickly you abandon your standards to keep others comfortable. And when they notice someone constantly sacrificing themselves for approval, respect slowly disappears. Not always intentionally, but naturally. Humans respect strength, and strength requires boundaries. That's why your energy changed once you stopped chasing everyone's validation. You became calmer because you no longer needed to prove yourself constantly. You became more selective with your words because you understood silence holds power. You stopped reacting emotionally to every opinion because you realized most people project their own insecurities onto others anyway. And ironically, the less attention you demanded, the more attention people gave you. The less approval you needed, the more respect started appearing naturally. Why? Because independence creates mystery. Confidence without desperation creates presence. People become curious about individuals who do not rely on outside validation to feel valuable. Another reason respect increased is because your decisions became more authentic. Approval-seeking forces people into performance. They say what others want to hear. They hide real emotions. They betray personal standards just to avoid rejection. But once approval stops controlling you, honesty returns. Your words gain weight because they are no longer designed to please everybody. Authenticity creates trust, and trust creates influence. You also became harder to manipulate emotionally. Before, criticism may have shaken your confidence because you depended on acceptance deeply. But now opinions lost their ability to control your identity. You understood that people judge based on their own limitations, fears, and perspectives. Once that realization settles into your mind, freedom begins. And freedom changes presence completely. People notice when someone stops performing for the crowd. They notice when somebody becomes comfortable standing alone instead of betraying themselves to fit in. That kind of confidence feels rare because most humans are terrified of rejection. But you reached a point where protecting your peace mattered more than pleasing everybody around you. That's when respect finally appeared. Not because you forced it, not because you begged for it, but because the moment you stopped needing approval, you became someone people could no longer easily control, predict, or diminish.